A WWE star says they let people down at WrestleMania 40. Plus, we have an update on the Vince McMahon recent lawsuit statement, and an AEW star is returning next week. It's all in the Cultaholic wrestling news right now. To yeet or not to yeet? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the yeets and arrows of a match at WrestleMania 40 that left everyone going, what was that all about? The Uso versus Uso match didn't quite hit the sides, as many have said. That's probably a more polite way than I've seen people say.
Yes.
But Jey Uso had a chat with Gorilla Position and was very frank and very honest about that match.
Yes, and it left me kind of feeling bad for the Usos.
Yes.
He said, I kind of feel like we did let the people down. I wanted to go out there and have a straight up banger. I wanted to do the wrestling part, but let alone make sure that the emotion part is there. It was just a time issue. You've got to play your position on the team. That's what happened. I'm still happy though. I got a singles match at WrestleMania with my brother. That's a big picture. So I'm always going to have me and him in a face-off at WrestleMania. I'm going to frame a picture that's always marked off. It's like a bucket list thing you're saying that's been marked off. I just wish we could have went the way I know we can. And Jay said as well that the time of their match being cut played a big factor in how their match went. And I believe him, because it did feel like the emotion part was there. They were really trying to push the emotion part, but didn't have like the foundation of work in the match beforehand for it to be a solid payoff. It felt kind of rushed. And that would make sense if it's because they had their time cut.
It's a real skill wherever you work, whichever wrestling promotion you work for. When you've got a match that you've laid out quite perfectly, and they suddenly go, oh no, now you've got to shave 10 minutes off it.
Yeah.
Because it's not just a case of just going, oh, okay, I'll do less of that. Because you've obviously weaved a story. And Jimmy and Jey Uso have been involved with Roman Reigns, who is one for having these sort of slower build matches, and all of a sudden when you have, and obviously Roman Reigns will never get told to cut the time.
Well, no.
But Jimmy and Jey have, and it's a case of finding the sides on that. It's a part of the profession that you got to get right. I know it's part of your job, but as you said, I still feel quite bad for them, because there's really an opportunity to show people what for, and I genuinely hope that we get another go around with them, just to give them another go at it, because I feel like there's magic there.
Whatever happens in the future, I think that Jimmy and Jay are at least still set up for big things. Jay obviously is one of the main eventers now on Raw, and it's going very well for him. Jimmy has just been kicked out of the bloodline, so maybe whenever he comes back after he's now been beaten down by Solo and Tama Tonga, maybe he'll have some sort of vengeful babyface arc or something. It seems like his options are still very much open, and hopefully they can both recover from this. They did have that nice moment on night 2 where they had the brawl on the ramp and the big spear off the side as well.
I think that moment on the ramp was probably was far better than the match they had the night before. Yeah. So it showed, like you say, that is there. The intent is there. The adrenaline's there. Let's give them another go. We spoke earlier today about Vince McMahon's latest statement regarding the ongoing lawsuit from Janelle Grant. Janelle Grant is suing Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and WWE with allegations of abuse, assault, and trafficking. Janelle Grant's attorney, Ann Callis, made a statement to wrestling outlets following Vince McMahon's court filing today, in which Vince McMahon very much alleges that a lot of the things that Janelle Grant talked about in her initial statement are lies. And he talks about how the relationship they had was a consensual one, and a lot of stuff has been fabricated. And really, the reason that he was bringing it up was because he was calling for arbitration as opposed to a public court hearing. With all of that being said, Janelle Grant's attorney, Ann Callis, made the following statement.
Yes, and thank you to WrestleNomics as well, who laid this out and everything. And they're a fantastic. WrestleNomics are always great with their coverage of various bits of wrestling news.
Big shout, Brandon Thurston.
Including very serious ones like this as well. So the statement from Ann Callis says, Vince McMahon has never known a storyline that he doesn't twist to fit his own shameful narrative. Her father, Janelle Grant's father, was in-home hospice during his final days, where Janelle continued to care for him around the clock, something that Vince's team's statement kind of challenged and said it wasn't true. Prior to his death, she had been caring for her blind wheelchair-bound mother. Using the grief of someone who lost both of her parents is an all-new level of disgusting. Callis also says that at the time of Grant's relationship with Vince McMahon, Grant wasn't dating Brian Gonsalves, which in Vince's statement, it was implied that it was like an affair and that both people had partners, but this has been...
They were living in the same building together, both in an affair in which Janelle Grant, according to Vince McMahon's statement, would leave her partner and come to his apartment at all hours of the night.
That's been challenged as well by Ann Callis, Janelle's Janelle's attorney, and adds as well, her ex-boyfriend allowed her to stay in the apartment as she rebuilt her life and resume post taking care of her parents. She had no job and no other financial support to lean back on.
Now, Vince McMahon has denied all the allegations made against him and has called, as we say, for arbitration as opposed to a public court hearing. We'll keep you updated on this one. You can see more of the court filings and stuff at cultaholic.com. Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics also this week has revealed some details about The Rock's status with WWE in how it attains to his talent contract, which is obviously different to him sitting on the board. But we've got a bit of detail now in terms of what The Rock's role as a talent is, and also how much money he's making.
Yes. First of all, Dwayne Johnson, it says, is permitted to hire third-party service providers in connection with developing concepts, scripts, and storylines with WWE's approval. For this, WWE will reimburse $7 Productions for the cost of those service providers. One of those people hired under this process was named in the contract but was redacted, but it's believed to be Brian Gewirtz, who's done storyline writing stuff with The Rock in the past.
For a long time, yeah, and I think he's a name that's come up a few times in the months leading up to WrestleMania as well. Yeah. The deal itself is worth $30 million in TKO equity. This is based on a schedule that will run through to the end of next year as a talent as The Rock as a talent.
Yeah, it could imply that we'll see him maybe more in the near future than we perhaps assumed as well.
Oh, maybe. Very much so, yeah.
At least part of that equity apparently is for Johnson licensing his name, likeness, and, quote, certain other intellectual property rights to WWE for use in connection with certain categories of licensed products related to professional wrestling for up to 10 years, subject to certain earlier termination rights. This includes The Rock, as in the ring name The Rock, and nearly all of his famous catchphrases. These likenesses cannot be used on things like political ads, alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, porn, or pop-up ads without Johnson's approval, which is fair enough.
Yeah. So if you do see anything sold on Etsy in the shape of The Rock, I've seen a few horrifying images of The Rock used in more adult contexts. They are not official. Let's put it that. Actually, we've seen The Rock using his likeness already in a competition to win a car.
Okay,
so that's a really big start of that. Last year, Dwayne Johnson got nearly, get this, $491,000 for royalties, and will continue to receive yearly royalties for the sale of products with the aforementioned IP. That is true money while you sleep.
Yeah, a small change for The Rock, that though. $500,000.
I wouldn't get out of bed for $500,000, me. Meanwhile, a bit closer to home in the sense that NXT took place last night. It was the first week of spring break-in, and since the release of his charge, Von Wagner, we haven't seen Robert Stone on TV. Fightful Select's Corey Brennan reveal that there is apparently a new role for Robert Stone.
Yes, last night at week one of spring break-in, he had his first night as a producer, co-producing a match between Jada Parker and Fallon Henley, alongside other producer Matt Bloom, formerly Albert, formerly A-Train, formerly Lord Tensar.
Nice, all of them. And Giant Bernard.
Yes, him as well.
Lest we forget Giant Bernard. In terms of front of camera stuff, Fightful are reporting that while asking around, there is no current creative plans for Robert Stone to be paired with other NXT superstars.
Fair enough. Seems like he's transitioning into a behind-the-scenes role.
And what a weird twist of fate that is for Robbie E.
Yeah.
Remember when he joined and he came from the reality show world and they're like, oh, go on, get in there. Or was that Jesse Goddard's? Maybe a bit of both.
They were all
in a sort of similar thing.
They were all Jersey Shore lads.
Jersey Shore lads. Robbie E really proved his mettle as a manager. And whilst I'm glad he's moving into something else, like a new role, I do hope we get another run out with him.
Yeah, I would think so as well. He's very convincing. Obviously, it was a weird... I feel like him and Von Wagner could have been a big success in NXT, and I feel quite bad for Von Wagner because they were in these often comedic angles and that sort of thing. It felt like neither man was used to his full potential. So hopefully...
You put this on Twitter, actually, and you were like, what were they hoping to achieve with the trajectory of Von Wagner?
He's a big bloke who can smash people through tables, and they were like, let's make him a figure of fun. I don't really understand.
It's one of those things where he was very much a Vince McMahon hire in a Paul Levesque world.
Yes.
And there was a few that have unfortunately fallen foul of that system both ways. When someone has been hired, that Vince has gone no, and someone that Vince has hired retired, where in the aftermath of Vince leaving, they've gone, nah.
Yeah.
So it's a real unfortunate situation. I do hope Von Wagner finds his way. Having said that, with Kyle O'Reilly fit and healthy in AEW, I said this yesterday, I will say it again, Tony Khan has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever right now.
Pair them back up.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You coward. Do it. Speaking of AEW, a welcome return next week.
Because next week they are in the Canada Life Centre, which is in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And the official Twitter account for the venue, for the Canada Life Centre, who's hosting Dynamite next week, confirmed that Kenny Omega will be appearing on next week's show, which is often how it's often how things like this get leaked, isn't it? They've not yet been advertised by the wrestling promotion itself, but the local venues want to make sure they get everyone in the building. So they go, oh, Kenny Omega's coming back, which seems like the sort of thing that AEW would want to announce themselves. It's a big deal if it's true.
Yes, it is a big deal. And I don't think this is going to be a full-time return for Omega.
Maybe not.
But I think it's a case of, you know what, it's home turf. Let's get him out there. Let's have a little catch up with him, make sure he's doing all right. It'd be nice to see him again. I think he'll get a beautiful reaction in Winnipeg.
Hopefully, depending on how far along he is in his recovery process or this extended break he's taking from wrestling, hopefully he doesn't rush it. I don't think anybody wants to see him rush back and get injured again. But I do miss him as a wrestler in the AEW landscape. So hopefully, if and when he decides to come back, he can go all guns blazing.
And if you miss us later today when there's no new news video, you can keep up with the latest wrestling news at cultaholic.com. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.